For this first plate, we're just gonna do a little saucer so we can get the technique down. So this is about 1.5 pounds of clay, and I'm just gonna start by centering. And sometimes it's good to just ease your way up to a bigger amount, so you're not trying to center all 4 pounds or 3 pounds or 7 pounds, depending on how big of a plate you want to make. So I'm just really finding a spot when I center to anchor in one of my arms. Okay, I'm using my standing wheel, so I have my arms anchored onto the splash pan. But if you were sitting down, you could anchor them into your thigh or like into your hip creases or into your side, whatever is more comfortable. And remember, coning up and coning down is a really good way to get everything back on center. So I'm just squeezing my clay all the way up into this cone shape, and then I'm keeping my anchored hand here, and I'm pushing down and out with my top hand. And whenever we throw, our hands are always a team. I know I say that a lot in class. So my hands should always be working together. So I'm pushing down, out, and I have one hand as an anchor. Okay, so that's pretty centered. So now what I want to do is I want to make this turn into like a pancake. So I'm going to make sure that it's all really wet. If you need to take your sponge, you can put some water in a sponge. You can hold your sponge in your hand if you want. I keep one of my hands as an anchor, and then my other hand I put on top, and I just start pushing flat in the middle. Make sure that I add more water. And I'm using, you can see, I'm using this part of my hand to push down because it's pretty stable. So I'm just pushing down, making this pancake shape. Keeping my other hand to keep everything on centered. This is just going to be like a little saucer. If my clay is a little bit harder, I can also use my other hand on top. I'm just pushing in the middle, and then I'm slowly pulling back. Okay, my wheel can be going pretty fast. Alright, and now's the time that I need to decide if I'm going to be making a plate that has a foot that I want to trim. So if you want to trim a foot, you want to keep it a little bit thicker so you have enough clay underneath there to actually trim your foot. So I would say, right now that's a little bit more than 1/4 inch. If you don't want to have a foot, then you can make it a little bit thinner than that. So I'm going to go a little bit thinner. You have to remember with the bottom of anything, you really want to make sure you're compressing, especially with this big surface that we have. So you can use your hands to do that, or you can take a rib. And we just want to really compress that clay. Or I can take my fingers, and I'm just really compressing. And going to the center. Or I can take my sponge and just lightly, I'm not making it any thinner. I'm just going to the edge and then back to the center, just really flat, making sure it's all nice and level, flattening that out and just compressing that clay. Okay, So the next step for a plate is we want to bring up this edge right here, our lip. So this is also where you can decide if you just want your plate to just have a little lift to kind of stop the food from going to the edge and falling off, or if you wanted more of the traditional plate that has that bigger ledge. So I'm going to show you the bigger ledge now. So I pushed, what I did was I took my finger right at the base of my pancake, and I took my finger and I just pushed in, and that's going to bring up this wall. And I kept pushing in until I had the wall at the height that I wanted it to be. Okay, my fingers are up here, but you want to keep your fingers on the right side if you're right-handed and left side if you're left-handed. So then I'm pulling at my wall to thin it out a little bit. Okay. Now, if I have like an uneven little bit on my rim, this is when I would want to use my needle tool to trim that. So if I had a little bit of a jump or a little uneven spot from pulling up, remember I would take my needle tool, make it meet my finger, and then pull off that extra clay. And then I can go ahead and round that off with my sponge or my finger. If I need to thin it out a little bit more, I can do another pull. This is just like we pull any pot. You just pull up from the bottom. And now I'm gonna go ahead and lay this rim down. So you can decide if you want to support it with your right hand and use your left finger to lay it down, or if you want to do it the other way. So just make sure it has enough water in it so it's not sticky. So I'm supporting it with my left hand over here. You can see my finger wiggling. I'm supporting right there. And then I'm just gonna slowly lay that rim down. So just be careful. If it got too waterlogged during the throwing process, it's going to be really floppy. So really support it from underneath and just feel what the clay is doing so you don't go too far that it flops all the way down. Alright, now I'm just going to go back and do a little bit of cleanup with my rib. I want to get some of that sludge off. The thing that's so fun about plates is that they have such a nice area to decorate when they're all fired. So you can do sgraffito, you can showcase a glaze that you really like on this big surface. It's really anything you want. So I'm just getting my shape really how I want it with my rib. Deciding if maybe I want to put like a little swirl, depending on what I'm going to use this for. Okay, so this was 1.5 pounds of clay, and I left it a little bit thicker so I can trim a bottom, and my diameter is about a little over 7 inches. So that should give you some guidelines about weight. All right, so the next video I will jump up to between 3.5 and 4 pounds, so you can see how I do a little bit of a bigger plate.